Hey everyone, Otteray here, and today we're looking at plus 12 Dark Flame Cleft. Gonna go ahead and get right into it as this pull is pretty quick off the bat. I'm trying to aggro the little mobs and then bring them into the big one, the Overseer, and then kill the little mobs before he does his wallop, which will knock them all back. Yes. Now, you could kite this into more mobs, or you could kill it right here. I like to do a little bit of both. I'm going to kite it back until it does the wallop, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull more. So, typically on the next pull, once I turn around and we can look at it, I'll aggro the right side, and then hop over the left side, and then put up Shield Reflect. I'm trying to get all of the mobs to this side of the pillar, and so I'll ping over here and I'll let the group know, hey, come over here, get these mole herds in, get these wick lighters in. It'll help with AoE on the pull. Now I stand right there because I know the Overseer will be here, and the trick to the Overseer's wallop and knockback is that you're trying to get a stun right before they get knocked away, right? Another thing you can do is rely on your party to get in vortexes, binding shots, and roots there. We don't have a druid, but we do have a hunter who can binding shot, and with a special talent, they can pull the mobs back in one time. That helps with the wallop, and right there, I kind of messed that one up with my stun. But any combination of that, or knockbacks in general, can definitely help contain that wallop. You can also bring them around corners, like the one to our right here. You bring them in the little cubby there, and the knockback will only knock them into the wall instead of across the room. I'm not really worried about it here as a lot of the mobs are low and there isn't anything for the mobs to get knocked into. Now one mistake that I make here is that I don't get the laborers that drop down immediately and they aggro on the group. That's a huge mistake. Don't do that. And then people decide they're going to hit the laborers anyway and I have a hard time getting them back. Then I might even get somebody killed here. Yeah. So their death is my fault despite them attacking them. I should have been prepared for that. But my plan was to aggro these and then move forward. I kind of forgot that those laborers come down. Hey, it happens. Whatever. Anyway, the way I like to do these pulls is grab all these mobs, go up toward the boss, hook a left, and then go around that corner. Then we'll kill them all there with the boss. You could potentially pull a lot of these mobs into the boss and let the carts kill them and whatnot, but that's kind of new tech for me at this point during the video. So I just do this instead. This is what I'm familiar with and what we've been doing. And as long as the group is on board and they all hook around the corner as well, it's pretty clean. Once again, it allows us to not have to worry too much about the wallops aggroing other packs, and they'll come right back because of the line of sight. So, great spot to AoE. You can even pull more mobs on this if you want to, and just completely continue this process. I could have gotten a stun or possibly a dragon knockback there. It looks like it's on cooldown for me. Tailwind. I know I look like a male Draenei, but I'm actually a Drakthir. Capable of knocking mobs back. One good thing you can do as a Drakthir tank is that right whenever he starts to wall up, simply do your tail whip, right? So, pulling the first boss, Old Waxbeard. I generally will keep him right here, if not even closer to the tracks. The carts can help kill the mobs, and the DPS, as long as they stay in that corner right there, can stay safe from the carts at all times. And it puts you pretty close to being able to just charge the minecart that you need to kill like that from anywhere, or heroic leap, etc. And then the final reason why I keep the boss right there is because of the charge. They're able to pick either pillar they want, and yeah, he missed, but that's the way it's supposed to be done, is hit the pillar and tanking them right here. They can pick either one, totally safe for the other DPS to just get out of the way. Sometimes you get good RNG and the cart is right next to you. That's great. And still doing what AoE I can on the ads while keeping a lot of them really close to the tracks to let the carts that come across do a lot of the work for us. So as you can see right here, if you charge the boss too fast after it hits the wall, it will knock you back as if you were in the boss's path. That's something you have to watch out for. You just need to delay your charge a little bit there. I'd say another half second and I probably wouldn't have gotten that knockback, but that's something you have to watch out for. Looking for the minecart, leaping over to it, unloading on it, getting this boss dead, and then we'll pull the next room. Now the next room is full of the candle mobs, and one thing to note here is I pull more than we need to. It's unnecessary for me to pull the mobs on the left side. Chop chop. But I do. One thing you can do is skip a big pull later in the dungeon and pull extra mobs in like these areas or at the start or at the very end of the dungeon to make up for that percent, because the pull that you would want to skip later is pretty big. Um, I think whenever I started pulling this room, I was thinking we were going to skip that pull later, but I decided later that we would just pull it. So that's why a lot of these pulls were kind of unnecessary. We didn't need this percent. I could have just pulled the middle and the side instead of pulling the left side in the entire room like I do. But anyway, the way I like to tank these mobs is definitely keep the task workers on the candle and just train my eyes on the ground looking for that stun radius that Bonk does from the task workers and avoiding it. That stun will kill you, straight up. It stuns for so long that the just attrition from the other mobs, you won't be able to do anything, and it's very frustrating to sit there and watch yourself not be able to use any defensive and just get railed. So definitely watch that, avoid it. It's a hard graphic to see on the ground, but it is dangerous. And we pull the casters independently, easy enough. I'll let the group whittle those down while I start to get these grouped up. Getting these candles on top of each other can be a bit of a pain, but if you can sync up their fire AoE in the ground, the groups has to move a lot less, and that's generally good. The reason why Bonk is such a pain is because of the big candles and can be hard to see the smaller ground effects in the big ones. Definitely something to watch out for here. Finishing the candles off, and then we'll go into this room. We don't pull the whole room here because these mobs casts, especially on 12s and higher, you want to kind of stagger. And once you start getting a big group like this, and you do a stun or a mass interrupt, it'll sync up all their casts, and that can be troublesome from if you get more than 5, right? And then also you try and get cast out as much as you can and stun later. It generally helps the mobs not go on full diminishing returns, which allows you to get interrupts the whole time, right? And so we stagger pulled 5 of these along with the big candle, and then I'll pull the rest once we have enough interrupts free to help. And then we'll start the candle boss. So this boss, you can generally designate one person to put out the candle, as in have the tornado that gets cast, just put out one candle. It'll make for less damage on everyone, as long as there's just one spot. But otherwise, everyone can help with the rest of the mechanics, and it's important for the tank to just stay, in melee range, and not let Blaziken kill everybody. So this part's whatever, but this part right here, whenever everyone has the ability to put out a candle. You just want one person to do it. Our group is generally healer. I'm checking to see which candle it is so I can pre-position and not have to move as much right here and keep blasting. It looks like we did put another candle out on the other side. That's probably an accident, but just one more is fine. No big deal. We can prepare cooldowns for it. Now, we have 2 stacks of the dot because of that, and he does a final cast. That final cast is the real damage there and what you want to use your defensives for if you're going to go with the strat like we just did. So they're putting out some more candles, or lighting up some more candles, and then we just repeat all of this. Reflects are pretty good here. There is some spike damage, it's nothing major. I should be rolling shield wall here in a second, maybe. Maybe I feel like I don't need it. And just all around, burn the boss. Very straightforward. Two stacks once again, and then it's going to do the big burst. Dousing breath, here it goes. Yep, that does take people pretty low, but healer's ready for it. Does a nice job of topping everybody up. And now we're back on to relighting the candles while we finish the boss. I got hit by the corner of that. I could have avoided that by being a little bit further to the right or farther out. There's no reason really to get hit by the tornadoes really. And if you do, you should mitigate it. There's no real reason to not try and avoid those if you can. Alright, so for this pull, if you aggro the flame tinder first, the candle in the middle dies. If you attack the candle in the middle first, it will stay alive. I don't know why that is. It's very odd. Anyway, we'll pull these to the end. Another strat obviously is just to kill them right there. These mobs are not all that difficult, but there is a lot of them. Their cast is pretty weak, but obviously you wouldn't want all of them casting on you. So we group these up, kill them quickly, and then get ready for the big pull. This is the big pull I was mentioning earlier that is totally skippable. You just simply go to the right side and you go up the stairs. You can see there's plenty of room to jump up over there, but we decide to pull it anyway. This pull's pretty easy for a warrior with reflex, and these flame tenders, as long as everyone's helping with the AoE, it's fine. But it looks like we were behind on them, so we simply just get a bunch of stuns out early, and the bosses are not being too agreeable with grouping up immediately. So, we stun earlier than we should have there, but it works out. They're pretty weak. Now, it's kind of hard to move Suits now because he casts so much, but what I like to do is each time he gets his little pillars of fire out there, I try and move him a little bit closer to the Candle King. So we're slowly moving up the steps here, but he doesn't always like to move very well. And so my goal is here, by the time these two bosses die, we're actually in charge range to pull the Candle King. We just slowly work that way up the steps. Alright, so finishing off Torch Snarl, getting in position to start the Candle King. This boss I do consider to be the hardest one in the dungeon. It doesn't start out all that difficult, and it kind of catches you by surprise because of the way the damage stacks up. But you really, really want to burst this boss early and do as much as you can, because it simply begins to be a lot of dot damage on the raid. I mean on the party by like halfway through the fight and by the end of it. It's very extreme. You want to do everything you can to do the mechanics correctly because more and more of these wax statues that are hitting everybody keep spawning. Now, there is a good amount of positioning for the boss here. You want to try and keep it as close-ish to the other wax statues as you can so that melee can stay on the boss and then go ahead and do the mechanics of the fight soaking. If you have any range, you obviously want them to prefer the far ones. And then if there's any that are kind of like sticking out that aren't near the others, you want to prefer to throw the one that'll melt them at that, the Dark Flame pickaxe. Obviously, you never want to get feared here, always prioritizing interrupts and having an interrupt rotation ready. The best thing you can do as a tank here really is try and keep the boss still and then move away from the waxes for the bait. But the bait is so fast after the waxes, a lot of times the boss won't even move before he starts the cast. As long as people are in position, immediately after they do their boss mechanics, they get the wax to melt and then they move close to the boss, it's generally fine for a melee heavy comp. As you can see, we keep it relatively contained here, and even with us melting the statues, even with us staying pretty tight, it's still a lot of damage on the group because this boss is pretty intense, and it just gets more intense, right? So it looks like we miss one here, but that's fine. Um, we're about at the end of the fight. The damage is pretty heavy, but the boss is low, so we just ride it out and very quickly finish him off. The rest of this dungeon is pretty slow and steady. You can do some candle shenanigans where you can overpull. You can stay outside of the cart as long as you have a candle with you. If you don't have one, you're not going to be able to deal any damage or threat to the mobs. But the real problem with doing that is that people want to be attacking in the cart as well. And so you have to find like a fine line of positioning outside the cart and then grabbing more mobs. But the cart doesn't always like to play nice. As you can see, I wanted it to go left, it went right. A lot of times will not go the way you want it to, and so it can make trying to kite stuff outside of the cart with a candle a little bit difficult. Anyway, I always prioritize the creeper's movement here. I'm trying to get all these little mobs down and then immediately move the creeper so it's not getting the stacks from the corpses. Once I see that that's good, I'll stop and just leave it there. There's no reason to move it any further. The cart's not going to move till the mob dies, and I don't want to give the creeper more stacks. And then I'll continue to try and pull as much as I can outside the group with candles, but for the most part it's um it's not all that easy to do if the cart is not, it's not helping you. This should work pretty well here as I'm ahead of the cart. I've got a candle. However, somebody's able to strike a horror and do more damage and override my threat. I wanted to pull a little bit larger here. It would have been fine to pull both of the creepers and keep them outside of the cart. That would have been work really well, but this is fine too. And as you can see on our percent, we're about to be at 100. If I wouldn't have pulled the left side of the candles earlier, we would have had a pretty good percent going into the final. Maybe you need a little bit more from the extra pulls you do before the last boss, and we've been good there. But otherwise, yeah, that's why we're way over on percent here, but we're still fine on time, so everything's all good. We have this last pull before the boss, but the cart does this weird thing where it goes up extra far. I thought it was going to go all the way. That would have been awful, because as you can see, I didn't have aggro on a lot of these mobs. They can be pretty wonky with how the shadow mechanic works. Alright, so we're throwing dynamite. We're waiting for the next phase of the boss, or to pull ads and then to pull the boss. This is just extra time here, nothing too special. I think actually one odd thing that happens is one of the people die in the party. Is that right here? Like they just straight up die during this minecart thing? Let me see. I know it's happened before, but yeah, you see that? I'm not sure why that happens, but sometimes randomly people can die during that. And so, rip. Maybe he threw his dynamite at those explosives? Who knows? But anyway, we're on to the end here. I'm just going to pull whatever because I'm trying to get to the last boss quickly. If you're very careful, you can just pull one creeper here, but we're not really worried about that. We're already over percent. We'll just, group up and blast. Cutting backwards. There's a certain edge here to where you'll be in darkness, so I'm trying to get up on that but not go into it, and then just finish the creepers before pulling the boss. We probably would have been fine pulling these creepers into the boss. Quickly hop across the darkness, and then we'll start the encounter. We generally treat the candle as a shared responsibility. Um, it really depends on A, who gets the debuff, and B, how much damage the group is tanking. If the healer feels comfortable being able to run the candles, then it's fine. But a lot of times if the spike damage is too high, then you'll want the healer to be set and let the ranged or one unfortunate melee have to go and get the candles. And then obviously every time you cast the beam, we're moving it, we're repositioning. We move the candle extra far that time to get a little bit closer to the other candles to make it easier to bring them in. You can always do that at the beginning of the fight or before you pull the boss, whenever really, as long as everyone knows it's happening and everyone's ready for it. One thing to watch out for while you're tanking are the little lads coming in. You never want them to get casts off. They generally won't make it just from residual AoE and people stopping the cast and whatnot. But if they do, just always be ready with a stun and whatnot. I know you can't really see from my POV, but people are generally going out and getting candles on a pretty uh, even rotation here. Um, it's pretty much just a cycle. You're in and out, getting the candles, bringing them back, and we have two candles right here. Both people are ready, standing just outside the circle to bring them in. You have only a limited amount of time to hold on to the candle outside of there, but you can do that. It's no problem. And it can be pretty handy to send in multiple back to back like we just did there to ensure through all the boss's AoE and all the effects trying to reduce the candle that it stays up. Steady flow of candles coming in, more ads are starting to spawn now, and I'm keeping an eye on those. Once they cast, I'm immediately trying to interrupt, I'm immediately trying to stun. There's an ad casting, I'm like a little concerned that it didn't get interrupted, but it died pretty quickly. It's no big deal. The candle's nice and healthy. I don't think there were any real scares at the candle even getting low there because of how much candle running we were actually doing. It might even been a little bit overkill, but it definitely made the run nice and secure. Anyway, there you have it. There is the Dark Flame Cleft plus 12. First timed by our group. See you in the next one.